Welcome to the Image Critique Show with Jeff Johnson, Rick Avalos, and their special guest. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. We've got a great show tonight. We have a wonderful guest. I think you'll be thrilled with her commentary this evening. Rick is unable to join us this evening because he's actually out making money, like we probably all should be doing instead. So he's working. So we won't be having listening to Rick's jokes tonight. Cliff's going to jump in and make some comments down there when he feels the urge. But we've got a nice variety of images. So let me introduce our guest, Kathy Meek. Hi, Kathy. Thank you for joining us tonight. How are
Hi,
you?
everybody. So glad to be here.
Well, it's such a, as you know, we've been all been judges for a long time, and how important we feel this whole process is. Then Rick and I started this little endeavor. We've had a lot of you. Well, your husband Gary was on the show. That wasn't even last. Was that last year or was it 23? It's
Wasn't long ago. I just,
was it last? Maybe it was just last fall.
yeah, I think
So
so. Seems like 6, 8 months.
okay, so we're getting the best of the best to come and help you guys out. So. Um, Most of the times, as you know, we will say that this is about composition and, yes, of course, competition. And we're going to be a little bit more open to the whole concept of photography, which we will be. But tonight, it looks like we have a lot of you are prepared images for competitions. They're finished, they're matted. So, by all means, if there's more specific questions that we don't normally cover, please ask. We want to help you out as best we can. And just remember, the little tagline, the byline is that we're just a couple of people who have ideas, and so it's not the gospel. So you can certainly jump in and argue with us and tell us we're wrong. We'll cut you off, but that's another story. We're going to start with an image that's called Autumn Uplift. And Kathy, I'm going to give you honors to go ahead and chat away about it.
Beautiful image. I'm trying to figure out how to make it larger. Uh,
I can do that here. Let me,
that's great.
okay.
Oh yeah, I love this image. I like the gorgeous colors we're seeing in the background. Would you tell me the title again? It was Autumn
Autumn Uplift.
Uplift, yeah, with the monoliths going up and just taking you up to that beautiful sky. I think I like to go by the 12 elements of a merit image.
Absolutely.
I certainly see a lot of them right here. Um, since we're on, let me buzz through them just really, really quickly.
Yeah.
Their impact, creativity, style, composition, presentation, center of interest, lighting, subject matter, color balance, technical excellence, technique, and storytelling. And looking at this beautiful image, I see so many of those things into play. I like the presentation. We're bordered, but it's not calling us away. And uh, I can just enjoy going up and down through the monoliths or whatever they are, the bluffs. Um, and I enjoy the warm tones in the front with the cool tones in the back. A lot of really interesting things in the image.
Yeah, you get the whole color palette here, that's for sure. It's a beautiful between the warm tones and the dark the cool tones. It makes a really, really nice balance. This line that's created, let me get my little pen on here. This line, this diagonal is very powerful. It's created by the rocks and then supporting to kind of give us some foreground, middle ground, background with the mountains in the background there. Yeah, and the color harmony is just absolutely stunning. We always have the conversation about, because you know how mats are always, there's always one judge in every panel that doesn't like the mat. So we always have those comments about, okay, this is my opinion. It might not be right or wrong. I kind of look at the mat does kind of catch my eye. It might be just a little bit too, it's in the right color harmony. And I'm not sure what else to do because you don't want to go light because then you've got the dark tones and so on. So it's probably just right in there. Watch for little things. And again, really picky, but this is stuff. There's more space here than there is here. It's not even, again, minor thing, but you'll have judges who will knock a point off for those kind of things. So just see that your key line is balanced. And Kathy, I want to ask you this. I've seen this trend we're seeing in the last several months. The key lines that people are doing are getting further and further away from the print, almost like they're dividing the mat in half. What's your thoughts on that? Is
I
that
don't like it so much divided in half. Um, this
don't
one
you?
looks like it's about a third. Now on my screen, I'm not seeing the difference that you pointed out. Does your top line look larger, wider, or the sideline?
I was talking about distance between the edge of the image.
And the key line, I understand.
Yeah.
Mine's even though.
Okay.
One thing about since you are talking more about the presentation, the key line might be just a little bit wide. And I think maybe that's why it's drawing us out.
Probably.
I enjoyed using those tones because they're come from the image, and it accentuates the line of the stone through the middle. And so I enjoyed that, but I think maybe the key line is a bit wide. So I think that's a distraction.
Okay, well, thank you. That was cool. Let me move on to the next image because we got some tonight.
I do want to mention the lighting coming across,
Yeah.
giving us the highlight and shadows on the stones. And what are those called? Are they monoliths? Are they? I don't know.
You know, it's a good question. I'm not sure. It's the Red Rocks area of Colorado along the Front Range. There's several areas, of course, the Red Rocks Amphitheater, and there's some other places down south of there that have these red rock formations. It's just an uplift of a
Mhm.
sandstone. Everybody out here calls them red rocks. So,
Gotcha.
yeah,
Well, I like I'm seeing shadow detail most everywhere, but
yeah,
they did use a good time of day to get some dimension into the rocks.
right. Nope, totally agree. Yeah, because sometimes you get these shadows that'll just go black and you get nothing. These black holes that the judge or viewer will go in trying to find something there, and it's just taking them away from enjoying the rest of the scene. So this is done super well. Our next image is called Colors and Patterns of the Desert. First of all, an awful lot of great movement here. Nice. Let's try this pyramid at the bottom here. Just nice support. But man, we got all kinds of triangles in here and lines that are all leading us into the scene. And then all the vertical pieces here that are really helping to move us through the scene, but we still kind of keep coming back to well, this is one of those images that really doesn't have a specific point of interest, but yet this tops kind of serves as that, but it's okay because it moves well. The color harmony is fantastic. I like the light tone of it. The shadows have been handled well for this time of the day. It's probably still morning, but could have been harsh. These rocks can do some interesting color tricks on you if you're not careful. Matte, I think, is well balanced. Like we were talking before, the color, a purple violet you wouldn't normally think would be good, but it coordinates with the image very nicely, and the key line is nice. What do you think, Kathy?
I agree with all those things. It's not a particular center of interest. The entire subject, I mean, the entire image is the subject. And I'm going
Right.
through it, I'm finding more of the little pyramidal shapes starting right down at the bottom and then adding to this one. But within that one, there's so many others. You mentioned the great time of day because we have all this depth and dimension that we're showing. Um, I agreed with you about the matting. It just blends with everything going on. And
Yeah,
we've
well
got
done.
cool tones. We've got this little whisper of warm tones right about here, and then little whisper of warm tones in the corners, bottom corners, but then up here. So there's so much interest between the warms and the cools and the shapes and the depth and the dimension. So I'm really enjoying just going over the entire image over and over.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of movement in there. That's what's fun about it. You get to go look at every little nook and cranny, and these little red rocks sitting out here, and then you take this lots of straight lines, and you have this curve going, this S curve coming through here that pulls us back in. Just very well. Work very well. Everything about it, the exposure, the tone, right? Look how sharp it is. And it's just really done very nicely. Good job, Maker. Next, I'm going to present Crimson Whisper. Kathy, what are your thoughts?
Oh, beautiful image. Um, I enjoy the color palette here. Enjoy the things that's going on with the petals. we've sprayed the image, the flower itself with the water. I'm wondering if it makes it look a little unnatural, the moisture in the stem or the leaf coming up. I enjoy the color palette very much. The presentation, I think, is spot on. I'm a little concerned about the softness of the stem itself. Let me see.
Well, this is one of those things that we can go and enlarge that for you a little bit just to kind of look at. Again, judges don't do this. A burgundy red, the water droplets are crisp and nice highlights and detail. And I think the petal that's showing has got plenty of detail. The stem is got enough detail in it, at least for me. Anyways, I think this is absolutely lovely. What I was going to say was that the flower is plenty. I mean, look at the lines, the textures in the flower, the droplets, the shadows of the droplets, the water, the reflection on the water. This petal is sharp, and I'm seeing just enough detail in the stem to support it. It doesn't look like a soft, so like the depth of field goes from here to the front of the flower because the very back of the flower and the stem are not as sharp, but I don't mean that in a bad way. I think it's fine. What you want the judge or the viewer to see is crisp and fine, and I think that's what counts. And I think this is very well done. The color harmony, the matte's done well. The drop shadow is very creative. I like that you've used the whole background as the matte as well. Just I think this should score well. I hate to say things like that because I don't want you to promise you, but I think it's just done very nicely. My little joke is always the only thing wrong with it doesn't have my name down in the corner down here. But other than that, nice work. And we're going on to our next image called Devil's Lair.
Shall I
Kathy,
talk?
what are your thoughts? Go ahead.
Beautiful, beautiful rendition of the slot canyons. Gosh, all of it looks like it is on fire. Devil's Lair is a great title for that.
Yeah, yeah.
Love all the designs going on. This was a really slow shutter speed, and it's amazing what they pulled from it, from the tones throughout. Maybe I don't know, a little bit distracted by the color of the key line. It looks maybe a bit blue or gray, and I'm not sure that it goes with the image itself. That's not a big thing. But I love the movement. I like the composition. I like the fact that the fire seems to be just streaming down from the top where that light is flowing in.
Over here.
Yes, exactly. Okay, one thing that a little bit of cleanup that I think I would have done if it's my image, about a fourth of the way over from the left, about a fourth of the way or a little bit less upward. I'm seeing some spots, looks like almost dust spots, maybe something totally natural, but it's something that you could go in very easily.
Over here.
Clean up. No, down further bottom left from there in a duller, you're close right there. There you go, right in there. And then also some streaks that I see that feels very natural with the surrealness of everything else there. But that's just a little bit of cleanup stuff. It's a nice image, but just a little bit of cleanup might help it into further competitions. Same thing with the upper right. I think it's things that's actually there, but just a little bit of cleanup to give you smoother lines and make it just a little bit more pleasing image.
Well, and it's hard because there's some others over here, and I know those are on the wall, so not much you can do about it. But yeah, you're right that when we're talking about competition, some of those kind of things tend to create questions in the judge's mind. So it's probably better just to, like, I see this one little bright spot right in here, and it just pulls my eye over. And I know it's natural and all those things, but just you don't want to keep going, and all of a sudden you've got no texture left on the wall. But sometimes those things, if they ask for attention, they will do that to the judge. And what it's doing is it's pulling them away from the subject, pulling them away from the story, so that they're not as excited about. But this has to be, to me, I think, one of the most gorgeous images of these slot canes that I've seen. We've seen a lot of them in this part of the world. This one is just handled so well, from the highlights to the shadows. And I think some of this, the one thing that they'll do when you go down there is they'll kick up dust on purpose just to get the sun rays to light up. So I'm wondering if there isn't some of that in this area here. Just a little bit of dust floating in the atmosphere, which is the added bonus that they will help. The guide will go over and everybody's got their camera set up or however, and they'll start kicking the dust or throwing handfuls of dust into the sunlight. And there may be some remnants of that as well. But
Yeah, it kind of supposedly makes a ray of light that
yeah,
way.
yeah.
But,
So you mentioned the key line, and I have to agree that it's asking for a little attention. And I'm kind of wondering if even the black matte might be, while it's neutral, that may be a very, very dark brown that's kind of goes a little warmer, like the deep shadows up in here. And then to take this key line, maybe even detach it a little bit and make it that same tone, but just tone it, take the opacity way down. So it's just a very soft. And basically all we're doing is making them more non-obvious. Is that a word? We're keeping them from being an attention getter. If the judges don't say anything about your math, then keep doing that style because that's what works. Okay, good work.
I agree with you on that. I usually pull my matte color from the darkest place on the image and use
Yeah.
that black rather than a black that's going to make the image look weaker.
Yeah, that's true because if you do a black matte and you've got blacks in your images and those blacks aren't good deep matte blacks, which these are, you will make the image look like it's underexposed, or even vice versa. I've found
Mhm.
if you go with we'll call it a light black, which is not to say a light gray, but not a pure black, you'll get judges say, well, that black isn't black enough. So the next image we have is called, and I have it buried here. This is called Dreamscape.
Beautiful.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I love the soft, almost no image there at all, but very intriguing. The tree is in a very interesting position, right in the middle. Normally, that's not what I would do, but with the mountain range behind on each side, and then the bird there to offset just a little bit, I think the symmetry works really well in this particular instance. Just the soft underprinted look of the entire image works so nicely in this situation.
Yeah, we get the mountain lines all kind of pointing to our subject matter. I like this white vignette around the edge too. That's kind of brave.
Mhm. But I think that goes with the image itself, just
It
that soft
does. Yeah.
there. Yeah,
Dreamy.
I think it works this time.
Yeah, and Dreamscape being the title, I think was a good choice to put the judges in the right mindset to present this. If they would have said Lone Tree on the Plains, it would have been, yeah, that's true. But where's the story in it? So
Right. But the desaturation is part of the story.
our next image is called Focused. Definitely focused. This bird's got its eye on its prey and it's in that last float position to line up its descent to get to the target. But I like that it's full spread of wings. It's sharp throughout, but you can still see, even with the white sky behind it, you can still see that uh, defining line of the head right in here, which a lot of times with the white feathers, you'll lose that. But just good definition. I kind of go back and forth. Initially, I thought, wow, this is awfully tight in that composition. But on the other hand, I think that also offers a sense of urgency, a sense of fear. If I'm the mouse looking up, I think the key line is just a nice little color. That's what kind of we were talking about before. It's just soft. I may even cut that one width in half. It looks like about, I don't know, 6, 8 pixels. I might take that down to 2 or 3. Just see what you think. Because all you need for basically the rules is just a very fine one stroke key line would work on this one, probably 1 or 2 strokes. Kathy, what are your thoughts?
Well, honestly, I like the key line like it is
Okay.
because it's so diminished because of the color, because of the desaturated color in that, so soft that to me it does work. I also felt at first the bird to be a bit crowded. Um, like to see a little bit more room for him to go. However, the blank space, the negative space in the image is where he's looking. So that does make it work. Enjoy the tones. You see
Yeah.
detail throughout, even in the dark tones of the bird. I'm
Yeah.
seeing nice detail. And so it's a good composition of the bird itself nestled up there in that corner. So it's growing on me. It's making it work for me.
Yeah, the more I look at it, I like it. And I think the balance of the bird, the position, the shape, balances this negative space on the lower left third of the image. So I think that don't change it because of what we said earlier or what I said earlier. Just leave it alone. It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was my initial thoughts as well. But the more I am looking at it, the more I'm seeing how it's working with him looking at his prey down below.
Yeah, and you know all the texture and the feathers and everything, you keep going back to the eye. You keep going back to that intense look. So I think they've got a good thing going here. Okay, so then I have an image called I Can See You.
Yeah, I like it. I love the sharpness. You see every hair in the eye, everything about the eye, and then coming down over the eyes in a nice position. It might be moved just a little bit from the up and down, right out of the center. It seems a little bit centered to me. I'd like to see it possibly a little closer to that upper third corner. But the way it is, we still read into the eye, into the small part of the eye, up to it, and then it's kind of hard to get out. We're looking around at everything as we look, but the eye is still captivating with all the uh, crisp sharpness around. It still holds you.
Just some
And then,
little like that, or here's
yeah, I think
here's before.
it just feels very centered that way. Um, to actually cut a little bit off the very top and the right side
More
puts it more
yet.
centered. Yeah, I think I might like that better. Um, when you have a subject so near the center and there's really no reason for it to be, it often gains a little interest by moving it from the center. Also, this one we see is not framed. Um,
It actually is. I cropped in, so
oh, I see.
yeah, I cropped in just to go to that we were talking
Gotcha.
about there. So it is framed.
Gotcha. Yes, it is.
And
Okay.
again, I think this the frame selection is good. It's a deep enough image that the black or a dark brown, I think this is the dark brown, works well on it. The key line is soft, so it's there, but it's not asking attention. And there's that little trick that we talk about is at the last second, the last thing you do before you say, "Yep, that's good." Go in and flip your image upside down and just sit back for a second, look at things that catch your eye. And if nothing attracts your eye to it that you don't want it to go to first, like let's say there was maybe one hair or something that our brain accepts it this way, the right side up, but you flip it upside down, it throws your brain into a spivvy for a little bit there, and you start noticing things that don't quite fit in. And it's one of those things that once you see it, we always laugh. We're sitting on a panel of jurors. Somebody will say, "What about those rocks down there?" And the rest of the judges say, "Oh man, I wish you wouldn't have said that because now I see them."
Right. You can't unsee them.
You can't unsee them.
One thing that does bring us back to the eye is the slightly out of focus hairs coming down, mane coming down on the left side, and then just a little bit on the right side.
Yeah.
So that selective focus being so sharp right on the eyes, and that going into softness also leads us where it wants us to go.
Another thing I'll just toss at the maker here, and I've heard this now since in the more recent years, we have so much more control with when we drop in gradient overlays, ovals, or whatever. However, this side is darkened. It darkens everything. That's what we want, right? But if you look at what's happened, we've lost the tonal range. The whites have gone gray, the darks have gone gray. So whenever you use, if you pull in a gradient overlay on this corner or an oval or something, do the whole thing. Adjust those sliders, make it darker like you want, but bring the highlights and the whites back up so you're retaining that contrast difference, that contrast balance. You can tone it down and get what you want, but you get to bring the little bit of whites and highlights in here so they're not as bright as they were, but they're bright enough that, because right now I look at this and I wouldn't give it as high of a score because I'm seeing this gray, almost a gray vignette around the corners, and those are little the technical things that unfortunately judges have gotten smarter over time too. So
Yeah, it's even going a slight bit magenta, I think, right there on that very left.
exactly, you do that in the shadows, you'll get that magenta cyan kind of cast. It's like if you've ever taken the sky, a brighter sky and made it darker, it goes red. and the orange, that's the same thing. You just got to watch for those tonal color tone changes when you're trying to alter it so it's not obvious. So just make it dark, but bring back the brilliance to it, bring back the detail so it doesn't look like you've. So this the worst thing to do is have your hand slapped because I'll guarantee you that you'll lose points. You'll lose those merits and those loans. They're always going to be loans to me. This one's called I Mean Business. Boy, does he ever look at that face. Feels like you would get a kid looking at you with the chin down and kind of squint their eyes like, I'm serious, mom. That's the feeling I'm getting out of this, is that this is, I mean, owls have that serious stare down when they see you long before you see them, and when you make eye contact, they're letting you know that, well, hey, I'm here. Which is cool. That's what makes these images so cool. But this one looks like it's even gone a little more comical. It looks like the chin is down and kind of squinting the eyes a little bit. But what a great capture. It's sharp, good exposure. We got a nice the highlight on the right and the shadow on the left is giving us a nice roundness to the whole bird. I think the stick, the branch is handled very nicely. It gives us some grounding to the scene, just enough texture in the blue clouds to not let it just be a plain blue. Nicely done. I'm not sure what else. Maybe you could crop it in about here. It's tight, but let's just maybe bring it a little. I don't know. It's just a suggestion. What do you think?
Yeah, I love what I'm looking at. I like to play with the warm tones in the bird and the mat with the cool tones in the background. So it makes that owl just jump off the page. And the textures are held beautifully, as well as in the little limbs sticking down there. Nice job. And I really like the composition here. The openness on the right is balanced sort of, but a lack of opening on the left. So
Okay.
that openness over there is where the light is coming from and gives us a totally natural look that way, in my opinion. So I don't think there's a right and wrong here. And that's such a beautiful thing about the whole process, our opinions. And but I think it's very nicely done.
Yeah, I agree. That's the beauty of it, and that's what we've been trying to put forward on the show. So I'm glad you said that because it is our opinions, right or wrong, is beside the point. It's just more information for the maker to look at it and think. And you might do something a judge suggests. In all honesty, you may think, oh, they have a point, and you do it, and then you go, I don't like it. Cool, that's fine. Again, it was just another opinion. Now,
Hmm.
when you get a panel of five judges or three or five judges, and you get a majority making a comment about the same thing, you might want to then consider that, okay, many people have said this, nothing on this particular image, just in general. So do take into account how many people have told you to turn it over or whatever. But by the most part, it is just another opinion. I will never forget him. Absolutely powerful. Great title. I like the hand on the flag holding this memory, looking down at it. Of course, the lighting and the everything about it, the color harmony. It's right on. I don't know that at first, this hand behind the flag, it doesn't really bother me, but I'm wondering if it maybe could have been brought the arm back a little bit more, maybe bring the fingers just touching the corner flag. What do you think?
I was concerned with the cut off hand too. If they could just slid it to our right, the subject's left, there will be judges that say the hand looks amputated. You know, we need to see
Right,
more. If you
right.
can just see a little bit more of the top of the hand moved out, you wouldn't have to see it every bit. But it does, give you an uncomfortable feeling the way it is, just completely hidden right at the joint. Now that's the problem, is when you break into joint, it makes it uncomfortable. Beautiful on that face.
Hey, the
Kind of,
lighting is fantastic, isn't it?
yes, it is beautiful. Kind of wish the head were tipped just a little bit so the eyes were not quite as much on the same plane. One of the things that we say is the shoulders don't need to be the same plane, the eyes don't need to be the
Tip,
same plane. And the reason why
tip this way
is
a little more.
yeah, just a little bit. Yes, exactly. Just to give us a little bit more flow from as we read in from the bottom and on up.
Yeah,
And it's not exactly on the same plane, but just a little bit more tilt is going to going to give more movement to the image,
right.
more interest, in my opinion. Once again,
I was just going to say, we talk about the color harmony of the matte and the key line. In this case, the key line to me really worked. It is asking for attention, but I think that that little bit of brightness just really defines this soft, very moody memories, feeling the whole thing. And then this kind of, I think, in a sense, kind of keeps it back into the military strict, that kind of thing. So I think it plays well together in this case.
I agree. I agree. I think it's nicely done.
I think there's a little bit of tone in the mat or texture. I'm not sure. I'm enlarging a little bit. Either whatever has been done to it, I want to get that from you because this is cool. Because I see a little bit of lightness up in here, a little bit down here. Unless my monitor's going bad. Matt's beautiful. Jiminy Cricket's last rodeo.
Oh, okay.
I
Yeah.
know. Go ahead. What do you think? That's an interesting.
Cool story. He has gotten the cricket, so
Yep.
it's his last rodeo. I like the composition. I like the stone being where it is. I like the bird being where it is. I might be a little distracted by the heavy out of focus behind, especially the little wisp right under the bird. It's tending to draw my attention.
I'm sorry. You are being distracted by that?
Yeah, I am just a
Okay.
bit right under the bird, the going going way out of focus. I do like to use selective focus on this kind of thing, but it feels pretty busy back there with the really out of focus, and then might be troubled just a little bit by all the lights in the greens, but then the mat itself is drawing my attention out as well because it's not. I don't see the same tones brought from the image. Feels a little bit dull for me, I think. What's your thoughts, Jeff?
Yeah, that's a tough call because this green, I can kind of see it picking it up from here, so it's subtle, which we've been telling everybody to do subtle. You don't want to pick one of these greens. There's an awful lot of yellow through green in here that makes it so I don't know what else you could do. You wouldn't do black, you wouldn't do white. The key line is a good call. I like it attached. It shows up throughout. I would maybe like to have seen, at least on my screen, the whole image just a little bit darker. I would have gone in and lightened up the face area and the catch, but I'd love to see just a little bit more darkness. The word density is the one that's ingrained in my mind. So if I say that, that's what I mean. And then also it was obviously bright, sunny part of the day. The top of the rock it has that feeling that it's been worked on. It's been toned down because it has a gray cast to it. So just little things like that. And I'm also looking, and I'll ask you this one too, Kathy. This bush, would you have gotten rid of this? I mean, I know it's a big part of the scene, but would you have gotten rid of that and just let this all be meadow behind them, or does that not bother you?
Uh, I don't know. It's I think it's a mid ground. I'm seeing all the
Okay,
focus
good
where
point.
the bird is, where the stone is, and then I'm seeing the way out of focus in the back. So to me, I just felt that was a bit of a mid ground, although it does distract a little bit from the bird. Genuinely didn't bother me. The way it's coming in just from the side, I wish maybe we could have seen a little bit more coming on down, but that's the way I think it fell in. That's just the way I was seeing it. It was more of a mid ground there.
Okay. So I've pulled up a levels palette and I've just grabbed the middle slider. I'm just taking the whole thing just a little bit deeper. And I think what it's gonna do is gonna play down the brightness of all of the sunlight on the green. And then again, I would go back with some sort of a dodging and lighten up the face, maybe even the feet just a little. And again, with this digital world, that may be just what I'm seeing on my screen, and maybe you guys are sitting at home going, "Why is it so dark now?"
I agree with you. One of the elements of a married image is storytelling, and I think the maker pulled that out really well with the catchy title.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
Sometimes we can get a little hokey with those titles, but I think it worked awesome right here.
But when it hits, it's pretty powerful, isn't it?
Uh huh. Uh huh.
Yeah. And I probably would. I don't mind these grasses. I probably would have taken these couple out, and then this, like Kathy mentioned, this highlighted is probably a branch in the background, maybe even the bright spot, just even toning them down. You have to clear them out together. But they're just kind of, even right here, it's just interfering with the shape of the bird just enough. I don't mind them back here. Minor things. I don't mind the highlights of the flowers on the bush back there, but just that little bright V between the wings, coming behind the wing, and the overall density could, I think, just give it that just a little bit. It makes the bird stand out. Go into do a mask in Lightroom or in Photoshop, camera raw, mask the bird and just lighten the face up a little bit more, give us a gradient across the face or something, and I think you'll be able to handle these highlights a little deeper and open up the shadows. And if those eyes were held back a little bit, man, what an intensity you'd have on that face. So we have a good crowd on hand tonight. Thank you everybody for joining us. Again, feel free to drop in some questions. If you have, we're happy to help. We've got 28 images. We're going along pretty nicely. This is called light and shadow. And we'll go back to this conversation. Another absolutely stunning piece of the canyons. Again, this is just, I mean, can you imagine seeing us walking into some office complex or a waiting area and seeing an 80-inch plaque mount of this one? Holy cow, life size.
The depth here is tremendous. I love leading in from the lower left, leading us all the way up through the image and then to the upper right, but you don't really leave because you're enjoying so much about what we're looking at. So
Yeah.
holds you really well. Once again, we did talk about the really stark black that does, in general, just tend to pull me away just a little bit. But the tones and the textures that were captured in this image are absolutely stunning.
Would you think an image like this, how would this pull off, leaving it, the image go full edge with no matte, but still have just a key line in there like people would do?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm one of these old school.
Okay, all right.
But I don't know. I feel like the mat. My philosophy on the mat is you don't notice it, you don't see it, but you notice if it's not there, it just frames it without calling attention to itself, and that's
Yeah.
I'm generally looking for. For a while we were doing all the crazy mats and all that, but they ended up deciding that, well, they're pretty distracting from the image. I work for where you don't notice it, but you feel good about it, if that makes
Well,
any sense.
that's great advice because really that's what it's supposed to. It's a rule, so to speak. I hate rules, but it's a rule to do to enter competition. So, but every time you go and make one of those triple edge, beveled edge, textured drop shadow mats, as beautiful as they may be, a judge is going to say, well, that looks great hanging on the wall, but not for this. I totally agree with that. Look at all the little pebbles down here on the ground. I mean, it's just the detail in here. The more I look at this, it's just fascinating. The highlight back in here, it comes from back in here. Look at it, it's just a nice little bright orange, but there's still, you can see the texture of the rock. This is just absolutely a stunning image. Again, this would be something I would love to see hanging on a wall somewhere. Absolutely powerful piece. It's a definitely stopper, tension getter. If you put it in a public place or something like that, you're going to have people just wanting to stop and say, "Oh yeah, I was there," or "I want to. How do I buy one of those?" I mean, just all the things that we like to hear about our work. So moving along, I go with an image called Morning Serenity.
Wow.
Yeah, good call. That's what I'm thinking too. Wow.
Gosh, where do you start talking about this beautiful image? Wow.
Yeah.
We've got the road, the river running through. We've got all the shapes and the dimension and the texture to look at. We've got that big butte sticking up there with the warm tones into that beautiful blue sky. Got a little hint of the moon up there already. Goodness, I can just go over and over and over this. Once again, it's one of the things that I like, playing with the warm and cool tones together. That gives us so much interest and contrast in the density, but in the tones themselves. So, beautiful, beautiful job. I can see this in the PPA competitions that we're all talking about,
Yeah.
really soaring high.
I totally agree. I mean, look at the whole color palette is there, and it works so well. Not any one area, one color pulls your attention. They're just all balanced well enough that even the more subtle tone of this butte top right here still has its own place. I mean, even the lines leading up to that, the got the river, like you said, coming through, but this little line leading us up right to the main butte. Fantastic. The only thing, I mean, again, this is what I think is kind of funny is we always laugh about this being too picky, but when you get an image of this quality that should score, 150 in competition, I don't know, I'm just saying this. The keystroke is maybe just a little bit too much. Color, fine. I'd make it, pull it down. It looks like it's about 10 pixels. Cut it in half. Cut it down to something like this, 2 pixels. Color's good. It's just there again for support. So it's maybe just a hair too much, but that's how picky I'm being on this whole thing because it looks good. Another thing that I'm just questioning, and again, I'm going to enlarge it because we can, watch for things like I'm starting to see a little bit of, see the haloing on the edge of the butte there, and then the dark haloing on the edge of that butte right there. Um, I know those things happen when you go and darken your skies, so go in and just touch those up. Everything looks fine, but just I can see now that little haloing there, and it's one of those things when a judge sees it, I can see it just across here. You will lose points. This one of the worst things ever is it gets a good high score and then some judge pulls it back and takes it below the merit level because of that. Because this goes under all of the rules of elements of design that Kathy read when we first started. Most of them, all of them are subjective, except there's that one about technical excellence. Those are not, those gotta be. You gotta have good exposure. You gotta be sharp and little things like that. Sounds minor. I've walked into businesses and seen big images like this on the wall, and there's that bright white line. Well, it's not a competition, but it just does say, okay, so Maker, definitely fix that, and I'll vote this real high next time I'm judging for you somewhere. It is called On the Way Home. Look at the what I think is cool is a lot of times we'll see pictures of birds in flight, but look at the lighting, the depth of the sunlight, how it's creating the depth from wingtip to wingtip across the wing to get my little pen here. So not just from top to bottom, but it's making the wing look rounded. It's making this wing, we get a little translucency going on here. Um, the highlights on top of the wing in detail, and then the background being just softly out of focus. Color harmony throughout, good placement, keeping the birds over to the left. It gives them room to fly into the scene. A little bit of clouds give us something back there instead of just a blank nothing. The only thing that kind of gets me is this tree line, and I don't mind the tree line. And again, personal preference on judges. I'm not a big fan of cyan. It offends me, and I don't mean this in any personal way. Because you've got darker shades of grays and blacks in these trees. I might look at trying to tone this row of trees down into more of a neutral. I know you've got a lot of cool tones of the sky and the snow and the board and the mat, but if this were my image, I would take this tree line and try and make it more of a dark gray, like these bushes down here. Again, minor thing because that's how many good things are going on in this image, but that's what I see.
I agree with that too, but I'm a little bit concerned. I'm seeing all the highlights and the lighting on the birds, which is spectacular, but I'm not seeing any evidence of that on the trees or the shapes in the snow. I'm a bit confused by that. Do you have an exclamation for me, Jeff, for imagining that?
Yeah, and a lot of times in these situations, when you're in this environment, you've got the birds close or however close. Maybe there's a 600 millimeter lens going on, which gives us the bokeh of the background there. That we have enough distance between the birds and the back hill and the sky cover. We'll have breaks in the clouds where you'll have a thinner layer right above us. That light's breaking through, hitting the birds, and far in the background might be more of a thicker cloud cover. I know that sounds like a great story, but it's very true. I've seen that happen in the wilderness quite often, where something close to us gets light, and something in the background is more covered with clouds because there's that much distance in there. That's how I read this. I don't object to that. I think, matter of fact, it even makes the birds stand out. But yeah, that's a good point. Just be careful. If it is a manipulated image, just keep it close enough so that's not real obvious. You don't want this to be dark black and then have these guys look like they have spotlights on them. I don't, I see what you're saying. I don't object to it because I have seen this scene many times and I think it's very realistic. So
Okay, well, I
that's
get
my
it.
spiel.
Well, I do get it and I understand. And also I see a difference in the clouds. For instance, right behind the front bird, it looks like we're even having a rain shower back there. So yeah, you're going to have all kinds of conditions with the clouds in this scene. So
Yeah, especially when you're compressing that much. I mean, there might be a couple miles in between these birds and this ridge, and then how much more distance between the horizon of the sky too. So yeah, you're going to pick up a lot of more weather.
that's true, but it is a beautiful image. Love the birds themselves.
And it's interesting that you say that because I actually really enjoy this because the birds have that much more highlight on them than the background. It just really makes it, to me, it gives it dimension. It gives it stand out. And then you got the complementary colors of the brown yellows against the blue cyans, so it makes them stand out even more.
That's true.
John, I just saw your question. Which picture were you talking about the color of the mat? The one just came up or an earlier one? Or did we address it?
It was the drone shot.
So, what's your question about the matte color? You think it's could be
Well, I
different?
just was wondering if it was too bright or if it should be something in that foreground there of that kind of grayish, little darker gray tone.
That's a really good question because I was actually working on a couple images just yesterday with the same situation where I have so much color tones and range throughout the scene that I can come up with a nice warm brown mat that does beautifully with this. And then what does it do against this cold tone sky? Then we go with the gray, and that looks great here. And then it's obvious against this. So I don't know unless you were to do a gradual or a gradient from the mat across the bottom, which I don't recommend. That was a bad joke. That's a tough one, and I imagine the maker probably went through the iterations of different mats to see which would be the most neutral. It almost looks like about a maybe even close to an 18% gray, which would probably be about the safest choice. So that's a good call. The interesting thing there is, like we were talking about earlier, 5 judges on a panel, somebody's going to say something about it. So there's a question about the moon. Are you questioning the reality of the moon, the glow? Because that kind of hit me at first. And again, I'm going to do something we normally don't do. Does the glow look real?
Well, I just equated it to the moisture in the clouds.
That's kind of what I was thinking too, because obviously with these clouds, you got a lot of moisture and you're going to get that pattern. It almost looks like a ring around the moon of the glow, which can happen, but maybe, again, if it's raising the question of a couple of judges, because Gary's a seasoned veteran as well, if this is, and I'm not judging you by any means, maker, but if this is an added glow, I might make it larger, more gradiated, and softer yet. So it's just a th second thought. It's a very soft thing. Because it probably, if it's just the moon alone, I wouldn't suggest that because that's going to stick out like a sore thumb. If this is real, then I'll shut up and go to the next image.
Yeah, it's beautiful regardless.
You know, it's absolutely gorgeous. But those are the questions that come up. And here's the funny part, and I know you guys will agree who've judged a lot. When an image comes up where there's nothing really obviously like, oh my gosh, I don't want to say wrong, but something that catches your eye, we start looking harder for things. And it's not like we don't want it to be, and there's not that perfect, but it's hard to come in. Oh, here's a note here from the maker. The moon is as shot. This very nearly full moon setting before the sunrise. The moon was considered bright than the rest of the scene. Oh, yeah, I could see if it was a full moon, it sure would be. But even the other side of that too, though, Ken, is that while it may be technically appropriate or correct, if it raises these kind of questions, that could affect your score. So for what it's worth, try it by softening it, try it by I'm just, making it a little less. I saw it when it first came up, but it didn't bother me. But once we start talking about it, all of a sudden, like, oh, okay. So he's basically saying that the moon is real. It's part of the shot. So that's cool.
I felt like it was just the moisture. We see that a lot here now. Y'all
Sure.
are where it's not as humid as it is here. So that's a really common looking thing to me is that halo on the moon, around the moon. And let me address the mat since somebody brought it up. As it come up to
That's true,
me,
Ken.
first thing I noticed was the mat, but to me it gave it not a high key look per se, but just a light airy look. And then that to me brought out the highlights within the image. To me, it felt okay. It felt okay. I'm the same way. I'm always looking for what's going to be my best choice. I don't want it to attract attention, but to me, it did give it just a light, airy look that,
It just balances it nicely, right?
yeah.
Yeah, the only thing that really for me, I don't mind the color mat. I don't mind the color of the key line. I maybe would just take that down to 1 or 2 pixels or something and try that because it's just asking for just a little bit of attention, even though it's easy to do the matte and the key line in color harmony just so it's not overdone. Okay.
This is one of those, though, that there would be several choices.
Quiet radiance. For me, wow is the first comment that comes in my mind. I mean, I love the macro views and of course with the water droplets in the story. And I love macro with a shallow depth of field. So all of this is really speaks to me. So let's talk about the pertinent parts of it. But I like the sharpness on the front of the flower. It falls off just enough so the back edge here is just soft. The back of the water droplets here. So it gives us some depth. It creates that. The background is just ever so slight, almost a paintbrush effect with the strands of grasses or whatever leaves back there. I think the matte color, and this was talking about a thin, coordinating keystroke, but not asking for attention. So in essence, kind of like we've been saying, well, we won't beat this one too much more. It fulfills the rule. It's supportive of the image. It fulfills the rule. That's all you need in a matte and a keystroke. The position, the composition, very strong. It's a large flower and tight in the image, but that also speaks. It's larger than life, so it also says, "Hey, pay attention to me." I think good stuff. Kathy, what do you think?
I agree with everything you've said. I love the beautiful little tilt of the flower motion. It makes it not stagnant. And the little dancing petals or whatever it is behind there adds to that story as well. So it's kind of a symphony working together to me.
Well, even the fact that the grasses back here are going in this the direction and the flowers kind of contradicting that. We'll take a Dennis Hammond word and we'll call this the juxtaposition here. But it works very well. I mean, even if the patterns of the background were going the same direction, it's still a beautiful image. But just that little soft contrast of movement is very strong. Very good work. Makes me want to go grab the camera tomorrow and go find some more flowers. Any questions from the peanut gallery? Any thoughts, comments? There's a lot of you out there tonight. Thank you for showing up. There's got to be some bad jokes out in the group, I can tell you. Yeah, the one comment that with that last picture of the buttes we were talking about, the comment was that the challenge is MIR versus IPC. And yeah, you can do certain things in one and not the other. And I guess that's just how it has to be. Unfortunately, there's some of the same judges. And I know it's hard because it's a lot of the same judges that do both ASP as well. When you submit images enough, you're throwing that out there. Now, honestly, as a judge, we don't know the makers. And even if we have seen the image before and we don't know the maker, that's fine. You do your best, score it the way it is. So I don't know that I would, the odds of some judge remembering that the moon was different in one scene the next time they see it, they may look at that. And if they even thought about they made it better this time. So I don't know that it's something that is an issue because you're not talking about replacing the moon with a pickup truck or something like that. So are you ready, Kathy?
I am. There are some gorgeous images so far.
This is a great collection, isn't it? Oh boy, wait to see this one. Royal Portrait. My first question is, Maker, how did you get him to pose this well? I mean, did you use hand signals or were you just telling the mom, tip your head a little more this way and look right back? I mean, this is just absolutely right off the bat powerful. That impact, that number one thing on the rule of elements or elements of design, I hate to use the word rule, is impact. And this certainly has it. I mean, you look at it and the first thing you see are these three faces, the position of the faces, the pose of the bodies. I mean, it couldn't be any more and I get to say it more better. The vignette I think is very believable. The corners being deeper, we're in shadows, and it's a very natural thing. Matte color. The only thing I might say about it is that it looks very flat. I'd like to see a little more contrast, and I know that these animals aren't colorful, bright, but just a little bit more. Excuse me. Took a big drink of water. Now I got the hiccups. I'm sorry. I would like to see just a little more contrast, and you could even go in and just lighten the eyes ever so slight. But gosh, what an amazing capture. Kathy, what do you think?
Oh, absolutely spectacular. And we have the triangular pyramidal posing going on, although the bodies are all going the same direction, but even the lightness on the ground to the left of the person, the cat there on the left, gives us that gorgeous pyramid that we're looking for, and it feels very stable and very comfortable.
Yeah.
Let me see. I don't seem to have my toolbar anymore, but even the entire image coming up, I love the composition itself with that strength right there in the center. This is one of those times that works so perfectly because it feels very strong, a strong image. I'm feeling the desaturated look. I think that's what the maker is going for in both the animals and the grass. I'm a little bit torn. I think the tones in the mat are really nice, but I feel like they're pretty strong for the density of it. It's holding us in, but I'm still seeing it as I look at that somewhat desaturated center of the image. So I'm letting that grow on me. I think you did mention the vignette, and it looks like a natural vignette. It does, which is very nice. So I guess that lends on out to that dark green. And I don't know what other color it would have been with all the green in the image, but totally beautiful, totally beautiful. It looks like you would have drawn it. It looks like you had the choice of arranging all those cats, and I don't believe that. So very nice job. I do just a little bit more punch, a little bit more punch in those eyes.
Just playing with a level slider real quick and just maybe see if we can't.
I get the feeling that they were on now like that. I get the feeling they were looking for a desaturated look there in the center, not sure. But
Yeah, I don't mind that too much. I don't think it needs to have more punch, but the contrast was low. Maker, just try that, play with it. And all I did was use a levels layer there. It just looks a little bit flat here. You can go for dark, but it still needs a little bit of punch, is really what we're saying there. So whether you even add more, I don't even know if you need to add color. I don't know if those are the proper coat uh, colors, and it was not a judgment there, but just that punch, I think, is what brings it back a little bit. So
yeah, I agree with that.
that's what that's all about right there. Very cool capture. I mean, again, you need to teach posing. If you can do that well with wild animals, imagine what you can do with a family. Good stuff. Okay, so moving right along, we now have one called Summer Forest Watercourse. So nice movement in here coming in, whether you're following the flow of water or coming from this bottom corner, we have this nice curve, C curve that allows the motion, allows us to go from one point to another. This is a toughie because you get in this low light area of a forest and you're getting long exposure, which gives us the water movement, but sometimes it's still hard either. But I see just enough detail in these shadows that makes it more better. The highlights are handled very well in the streaming light coming through, so they're not blown out bright spots. Again, little minor things that we talk about. I like the light coming through, but a couple things, like I probably would have eliminated this line here and this guy right here being close to the border pulls, so I don't mind all this back in here. And probably would have toned that area down as well. And then minor thing, this little triangle right here, the first time you see that, you will keep seeing that. So little things like that are especially because when they're on the edge, they create a tension. And if it's not pulling the viewer's eye over there, then it's more better. So just little things like that. Kathy, what do you think?
I agree with everything that you've said. I like all the positives that you mentioned. Let me tell you just a couple of things, though, that's of a little bit of a concern. I love coming in from the left, and true, the water's running the other direction, but that's okay because visually
Right.
we're brought in from that lower left, and then we go through the image, which is perfect. And we have this S curve back there, and we don't necessarily see a whole lot of where the stream is going off to the right, but we can visualize that. We can tell what's going on. And I really like that. I enjoy the right amount of contrast on the foliage that I'm seeing. One thing that's concerning me just a little bit, let me see if I can get this, I'm gonna try to make this right for me. Okay, I'm not very good at it. But this entire corner, in my opinion, could be brought down just a little bit because it also draws our eye and it's right where we would leave from. So it gives us an out to the image rather than coming on back through here. So if it were my image, I believe I would just bring this down just a little bit, darken all these rocks that's catching the light. You don't want them to look artificial or artificially vignetted, but just to bring them down just a little bit so they don't tend to bring us in here and then straight on across. That's really my main critique there. The large tree trunk coming right from dead center, going right up the center is a little bit unfortunate, but you may could have moved that by moving your position a little bit, but I do agree with all the nice things that Jeff did say. I don't want to just jump in with the few little things that might be corrected, but that's the things that I'm noticing.
Yeah, I agree. If this corner was bring it just down into the same density, the same brightness of these rocks, and it won't ask for attention, then you'll stay in the river longer. And I would even do so, like I would go in and do a gradient tool on this corner, and I would even bring one down this way too. And it's just going to take this part of the forest, just, and I mean little bit, tiny bit, 2 or 3 or 4 points worth of making this just a little bit darker, which will take care of these highlights a little bit more. And then your river is really going to sing. So good piece of art in the making there, I think.
Beautiful, comforting solitude scene.
The early fisherman gets the lobster. Another great story. As big as we can go here and so we can see it. So I'll jump in here real quick on this one. What a nice, inviting atmosphere, serene tale of this little harbor town. Lots going on back here with all the lines and patterns of the houses, the sails, the mess. But it's part of that story. I mean, lots of houses across here, but it's all part of the whole feeling of this story. And then this boat standing by itself out in front, there's our focus point. and it lets us go in here, and then we visualize the other boats, and then we go back to these boats, and then we go back to the houses, and we go back to the houses. We go up to the hill. The church steeple is saying, "Hey, look at me," and then we come back to the boats. So I think the depth throughout this is really good. The storytelling is very nice. The color, I mean, I like the darkness of the sky, and there's a foggy overcast. This color seems a little too grayish green. Again, that may be difference in monitors. I don't feel it being at least from my experience, that kind of sky is going to be grayer than with that much color. Um, it does go with the matte pretty good, but I just feel like this is just a little bit pushed saturation wise when I think it could be okay just being more of a gray. What do you think, Kath?
Yeah, I kind of agree with what you're saying. I like the visual that we're looking through, more and more atmosphere as we get into the scene. Beautiful little fishing village that looks like it's tucked away in Maine somewhere, something like that. Yeah, really nice. Now, one thing that I'm seeing that I would look at doing this. I don't know. I don't want to crowd too much. I like the long, slim line. But if we could divide the image more into thirds, I feel like our water horizon is pretty near the center. I would look at this image. I'm not going to say I'd crop it this way for sure, but I would look at it with a little bit cropped off the bottom so that that water horizon line would be nearer the lower third, and then your tree line would be nearer the upper third, and it might give us a little bit nice visual there. And like I said, I'm not
It'll
sure.
come up like this on the bottom, you think?
Yes, to get that the water horizon where the buildings start more out of the center, more into a third. Now that's putting it more into the center, I think. Let's see.
So maybe come in like just inside that
I'm
flag.
talking, I'm talking up and down. Have you brought any down from the top?
No, no. Why should I do that?
From the bottom. Yeah, no, I wouldn't.
Just
I that up there to try to get the horizon line of the trees into
yeah, it
the
stays, doesn't it?
but that gets the water horizon line out of the dead center just a little bit and divides
Okay.
it more into thirds from top to bottom. I think I like that better. So to the maker, just try it, see what you think. Because that water horizon line was so near the very center, that's dividing it up more into the thirds. And it makes it a little bit more slimline, but I don't see a problem with that at all.
John, you made a comment about fisherman is further to the right. What were you mean? I mean, I see him. What were you referring to that though?
That was the point of the title. The early fisherman gets the
Oh,
lobster. So that's the title.
I
That's
see
where the
what you're
title's
saying.
coming from.
It's
Everybody else is sleeping in their boats.
so it's referring more to him coming up. Yeah, I got you. Okay.
Just a thought. It's just, I wanted to look at it that way and let the maker look at it that way as well. But I love what we're looking at, going into the crispness up front. It looks so natural that way. And then as we move through the image, we're getting into the fog and the mist and looking through more atmosphere. So I love the water. I love the Northeast, and that's just so very typical looking.
It's very cozy, even though there's a lot going on. It's very cozy. By the way, we were halfway done there at the break, so we're doing pretty well. This is The Face of a Life Well Lived, another stunning portrait. Look at I mean, what do you see first? The eyes. We're always taught, what do we want to see in a portrait first? Or more, especially when they're looking at the cameras, the eyes, the angle, the head tip, the whole body tip, the detail, the lighting is just fantastic. Beautiful key light. And a little bit of kicker back here just gives us separation. Clothing's handled well. Just seeing the line of the shoulder against the background, that's cool. Again, matte and the key line I think are done well. Did you do anything different to this, Kathy? What do you think?
There is not much to change on. It's just a lovely image of that gentleman, and it depicts a life well lived. I was expecting a very rugged looking person, but this is a very gentlemanly looking person in his elder years. And I think it's handled so well. I think his family is going to be totally blown away by this image. And we have all the detail we need everywhere. Just really nicely done.
Absolutely stunning. Would be a portrait that you'd love to have of your family member. And is this another if the maker wants to reveal himself or not. I know you don't care, but is this another serviceman?
Yeah, it is. He was a couple of years ago. The VFW up in Vale had me up. I did a bunch of veterans up there. So that's when I did his picture.
One thing I didn't mention, I like this in the square also.
Yeah.
A little bit different. There's no need to add anything down below that. We see everything we need to.
Well, the body and head tip really make that work in the square. Otherwise, I think if it was straight or if it was a usual camera ratio, it might not have the same impact. But that square just really lets he's leaning out of the frame almost, saying, hey, pay attention to me, kind of a thing.
Yeah, I think it works great here.
I did not make the eyes any bluer.
You were there with that blue.
That's what they were. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, there's been some comments in the chat box on that, the eyes and such. So, yep, very nicely done. We now have the Hunter's Ascent. There we go. Kathy, what do you think?
Oh, wow. I think that's very cool. He's has his prey. He's ascending. I'm seeing what looks like foliage coming up between his wing and his body. So he's picked that up along the way, or he's just kind of clipping it as he goes. I love the composition here. The selective focus is totally perfect. I mean, it looks like it was already there and you just made that. So the aperture was done very nice. Fast shutter speed, great capture with everything tack sharp. And he's left of center telling the story. I think the soft background is totally perfect. The story's great. I don't know, again, hear anything to change. Now I am noticing the very blueness of the white width of the mat. It may be calling my attention just a little bit. We might could have gone with something even darker, even maybe like if you want to go toward the blue tones, even maybe toward the very head of the bird. I feel like it's kind of drawing me out. It's pretty wide and pretty bright. So we might want to look at something else for that. And here again, this is one of those things I think there'll be a few things that would be okay. Even going with some of the taupey type browns, not the reddy browns, but the taupey type browns that you could pull out of the leaves might be a good thing to try as well. But as I look at it, I look at the bird, I notice the focus, I notice the composition, but then I start noticing the mat a little too much, I think.
Yeah, the more I sit and look at that mat, it's asking for attention. And I think because you've got these deep green browns all the way around it, you could go with those kind of a tones that just kind of carry the story out without being obvious. And there's something else I noticed, and these are the kind of things that I hate, and I've been on panels, and maybe you have too, Kathy, but there's been some cloning in the image to add some foliage to the bottom, and I'm not going to point it out. I don't want to do it. It's not to embarrass anybody, but Maker, just take note that when you fill in areas with that you've got, you go ahead and sample and fill it in, but you repeat the same leaf pattern, the same structure of a flower head or something. And as I look at it, I'm seeing one pattern show up several times throughout the scene. So those are the kind of things that judges will catch. And you will, I mean, I've seen images go from, I've seen images a couple different times, phenomenal story of the subject matter and score 94, 95. And then as the image is about to go away, one of the judges goes, wait a minute. And then, because cloning tracks kind of falls into that excellence category, it'll go drop it right below a merit and a heartbeat. So just, and I don't want to point it out on making things, but if you just look, and Maker, I'm happy to work with you offline at some point, but just watch those kind of things. If you pick an area, great. Just alter it a little bit so that it's not the same. So a judge can't say something about it and give you some low scores. That's the sad part there. But other than that, the bird is just absolutely phenomenal capture, good power. And then one other question, Kathy, we were talking about this before. What do you think about the direction? Is this okay? I mean, you haven't said anything about it, so I'm guessing your answer. But would you think it would be something to flip so the bird's flying from left to right? Does that matter? Is that going to make it any more powerful in your case?
I don't know. A lot of times I do that myself. I don't have a problem with it here. It feels comfortable to me. It feels natural.
Oh,
So,
bad mouse move, sorry.
were you going to flip it? Go ahead and do it and let's look at it.
I was going to do it, but I wanted to do it correctly.
Yeah, the upside down's not good. You know what? I think I like the other way better. The way the maker had it. I really
There's
do.
arguments for both sides too, isn't there? I mean, you can, as we look left to right, we're looking into the face to get the story.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you can say, well, because of left to right, the bird's flying left to right. So I don't think either one of them is bad.
No, I don't need.
It's such a powerful image that
Thank you so much for the clone tracks. I was so enamored with that bird that and that's an obvious flaw that the maker does need to know to pay attention to. And you can even start sort of with using the same pattern, but you do have to go in and alter it. Many things like bamboo, for instance, the way it grows, it looks so the same that you never actually see it
same thing.
identical. So when you see identical, you're in trouble.
Well, I'll just share a quick story with you because I think it's important. And Ted, you might remember this because it was there in your backyard. I was judging with, oh gosh, Richard Stewart event and Dennis. We were on the panel there in Salt Lake, and this image came up of, and it was a Daisy Duke character. It was a black and white. It was a young girl, very shapely, little clothes, sitting on this old shed front porch, and everything about the tones of the black and white, the pose, the lighting her was just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And I think we scored it in the mid 90s, and then and this was back in the day where this was physical prints. As the box got turned away, and for those of you who don't know what we're talking, I'll have to explain it to you another time. I said, wait a minute, bring that print back. The foreground was flowers, and we were so enamored. Both the guys and the gals were so enamored with this beautiful young lady and the tones. So we didn't notice that basically there were three flowers that had been reproduced across the bottom of the scene. And once you saw it, it was like, so we had to pull that thing down below merit. Now that sucked, but the good story that they went in and fixed it, and it is in the loan collection because of the getting the better thing in there. So while it looks good, you got to be really judicial about doing those kind of things because it's some jerk like me who'll come along and say, wait a minute. This is called the mountain's breath, is how it's spelled. So Maker, I'm sorry if it's supposed to be because it could be either one. I think the mountain's breath, I get it with the fog. Let me enlarge it just a little bit here. Um, Great camera angle, great point of view. I mean, you're up on top of the world here looking down at it, and that's just impressive. The same repetitive shapes that give us the comfort of the nice triangles from layer to layer, having the different tones, dark, the light, a little bit of dark, light, lighter. Just let us walk through the scene very comfortably, very curiously. Wonderful tonalities, even with the fog. The sky still has a little bit of texture, a little bit of shape. The white um, key stroke is fine. I would be a little careful. We're almost starting to lose it up here. Minor thing. It might be worth making it detached or make it a darker gray. Take this tone and go a little bit deeper. Of course, then you'll lose it down in here. So there's that situation. That's why all of a sudden you take it to the detached version instead. But oh man, what a strong black and white. The tonal range is just well stated. Kathy, what do you think?
Love it. Love the title added to it, The Mountain's Breath. And that's what you feel as you look at it. I love the diagonals going through. I like the full tonal range. Um, I like I like the presentation really well. It's just totally, I don't see it, I don't want to see it, but it's
Right,
there. It
right.
holds us into the image. Don't see bad sharpening lines anywhere, haloing, whatever. The title just kicks it over there, The Mountain's Breath. And that's what you're feeling and that's what you're seeing and just looks very natural and real. Even the light from the sky hitting the top of the mountain range where it looks almost blown out, but I think we've got just a good snow cover up there, and that's what's going to happen when the
Back up in this area here.
yeah. But when I was concerned about that for a moment, but when the light comes in and hits it, and it feels natural that the light's hitting it
Right.
there, the way the light's also playing with the clouds and the fog throughout. So very nice image. I like it a lot.
Yeah. Very strong, very good story. Maker, I apologize for reading that incorrectly because there is a big difference between the mountains breathe and the mountains breath. So nice choice. Good job all the way through. Solitude of Dawn. What do you think of this one?
Wow, I gotta figure it out. It looks like if that is high enough that the sun is just hitting that cloud and nothing else in the image,
I know, that's cool, isn't it?
thing that's very cool. I've got, okay, on this monitor, and I'm not sure, but I'm seeing some banding in the sky to the left of the cloud. I just found that. Do you see it on your screen?
I am not.
Okay, well, I was wondering because sometimes you can see it on some screens and not others.
Right.
So but it just had caught my eye, horizontal banding. But
Yeah, I
if
don't see any of that.
that's for real, that sun is coming up and just hitting that cloud, that's pretty spectacular. The composition is really cool too, being totally dead center and bullseye with the mountains going up each way. Sort of wish I could find a little detail more in the mountain.
I'm seeing just a little bit of mostly of a shadow, a little lighter in that mountain, those hills than the rest of it. Oh, I love this kind of stuff. This is absolutely, again, we talk about story, we talk about offering the thoughts to the maker. And I know this has been a big, I'm trying to think of the nice word, the controversy and PPA competition. Anytime there's blacks with no detail, you'll get some judge that will knock it out. And yeah, these are silhouettes. Even in the water, we've got just a repetition of triangles in the water and the little bit of reflection of probably a longer exposure to get that glossy finish, we'll say, that wasn't the right word, mirror finish, so that that brightly, and yeah, the sun's probably the very second the photographer let go of the shutter button, that sun broke that hillside and lit up the other side of here, but just the right positioning. It's cool. I'm looking at wondering if would you think black and white of this would be better, or do you like the blue tone in there?
Oh, I'd definitely like to see it in a black and white. Blue's my favorite color, and I love those deep blues, but I'd like to see this in just a good true black and white and see
Let me
what it
just do
looks
this
like.
real quick and see if that.
No, I like the blue.
I know, I kind of, because I was my first thought was ooh, black and white, but then
Yeah, really nice.
the
Uh,
blue's the mood here, the cool early morning mood.
it is very nice, beautiful image, very striking, and I enjoy it. And like I said, a little bit unusual composition, but it works here.
That's always the challenge when you get five different opinions on a panel. And I know that I like to call it the PPA way is to not center anything, and the rest of the fine art world is everything is centered. So it's kind of that fine line of nothing, neither one's correct or wrong. It's just, but when it gets done and it's that unique or that kind of a good story. All right,
Yeah, it really
this
is.
is the Mountainside Watcher. Go ahead. What do you think?
Yeah, he's uh, really nice, good capture, good focus on the image itself. We've talked a lot about the key line. The key line, I think, maybe could be diminished just a little bit. It's
Yeah.
very bright, but then we have so much of that bright same tones in the image. But anytime you use a bright key line, you really need to bring it down to just a couple of pixels. Bottom left,
With fine
I mean,
line.
bottom right corner, we're seeing just a little bit of yellow there. And here, I'm saying what Jeff was saying earlier, you get really picky on some things, but that tiny little bright yellow right at the very bottom right corner tends to
Right
bring
in
you
the
there.
corner down there. Yeah.
Just don't want to go there, just tiny little, get rid of that. Not a big deal one way or another, but it's something that could be a little bit of a distraction. The bird's really nice. I'd like to see, there you go, we're moving him a little bit.
I'm wondering, yeah, it's just there's so many beautiful colors and tones, but there's a lot going on. If maybe we were to just even, I like this little front row of rocks, but maybe even just to bring it in like this and just really zero in on the bird, since this is what the picture's all about. And
I
then
think so too, and maybe give the bird a little bit more space on the right than the left, a little bit of place
yeah,
to go and to look.
maybe bring a gradient in here to drop that blue, so it's just a little bit deeper in the corner, so it's I don't mind the brightness of the whole sky, but not this brighter part out here. Maybe I get rid of this yellow flower. That one's okay. I don't know, just a thought. Let me go back to the other. The bird itself is done. I mean, look at the sharpness of the lighting on the bird, the roundness, the shadow on the belly, and the brightness here, and a little bit of shadow on the back. And it's definitely got great detail. Even the tip, sometimes depending on if it's a birder or not, person will tell you, oh, you can't shoot this way, you want to have the full beak. No, this is a photograph of this bird in its environment. I think it's done very well. But maybe sometimes for competition, too much of the landscape pulls away, just like the little points that, because I mean, these are beautiful tones, the lichen on the rocks back here and the flowers, but it's all asking for attention. Tight crop right around the bird, but maybe give it some room to breathe. Maybe get rid of a few of the extra colors that might just play with that maker and see what you think. You might come up with something that you like more better.
I agree with that. It feels just a touch busy, distracting from the bird itself. But if you cut a little of the left off and a little of the bottom off, I think it may improve it.
It still says the story. It still says out in the wild in the hillside with the flowers and the rocks. So you're not losing any story. It's just we're bringing the bird to prominence a little bit more there. So
Good word.
this is my story. Again, another outstanding story of this veteran. I like the tags showing the lighting again in the face. The eyes just ask for attention. Even the little bit of the way the hat's worn, a little bit of hair hanging out shows obviously a serious soul from his military service, but just a little bit of a casual, comfortable feeling with himself to be relaxed. Almost has the radar from MASH look with the collar up and the dog tags spinning out as he'd run up and down the camp. What do you think?
With the hat frumpled and
Yeah.
all that's good analogy with radar. But yeah, this guy looking straight at you, his eyes happen to match his uniform, a plus, and nice lighting showing the form, the dimensions, the wisdom in his face. In my opinion, the kicker light on the right may be just a little bit bright because seems brighter than the main light. So a lot of times that's the angle it's coming in from,
Right.
increasing the specularities there. But so it's a little bit distracting to me. But you've got the nice main light coming in from camera left and giving us highlights and shadows and dimension on this man. His expression, he's engaging with you, and it's something you can really enjoy.
Couple little points. And again, it sounds really picky, and I use that term only to make it to try and make my point because it is fine-tuning things. But going to competition, when an image is this good, the judges will look for stuff. I know this is the chain from his tags, but there's that one little highlight right there. The cuff of his sleeve. It's just asking for attention right at the edge. This is, I know, a patch that's probably very important to him or to his troop or whatever, but it's right on the edge. I'm not sure what you could do with it, but it does ask for attention. Minor things, a couple of dust spots. But I'm just saying that because of my own experience. Maybe I apologize to the maker because maybe I'm getting back at the things that have been said to me, like, come on, it's just one little spot. But I was told. So I'm just spreading the love, we'll say.
But it's really nice that you point out little things like that they can fix to take away the distractions. And that's the thing, we few distractions as we can get by with.
Can I tell you one thing about this guy?
Absolutely. Yeah, I love the
He
stories.
had 3 Purple Hearts.
Really?
And when you get your 3rd Purple Heart, they send you back to the States.
Yeah.
So when they're patching him up, the doc says, well, this, put you in for the Purple Heart. He said, no, I don't want a 3rd one. They'll send me back. I want to go back to my unit.
No kidding.
So the doc, he said, he looked at me, he says, it ain't that bad.
Oh, that's neat.
Did he get his 3rd Purple Heart though, just to
Well,
have
no,
it?
he didn't want it. No,
So he totally denied it and then didn't
totally
get it.
denied it because they'd have sent him back, and he wanted to go back to his unit.
That's
Awesome story.
That's an attitude. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
not something you'll hear people say these days.
He is quite a guy.
Boy, no kidding. Yeah, but well, we keep telling Kathy Cliff has done this. I forget. I keep asking. I forget how many guys have you photographed now? I shouldn't say guys, but how many veterans have you photographed now?
About 190.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And of course, what is fascinating to me is the stories that he's heard along the way of these
Sure.
veterans. So we're going to help you make a book. We have to help you get a book out there just to share those stories with more than just us. All right, we've only got 4 images to go, so we're moving along very nicely. So this one is called Too Close to Call. Holy cow.
Whoa.
I mean, from this point of view, I'm waiting for the collision.
Yeah, I'll talk about this one. I'm trying to figure a few things out. Love that composition. That is so cool.
Yeah.
Um, I wish I were I'm seeing some fluffiness and some movement in the contrails, but I wish I could see a little bit of movement in those propellers. They're stopped so I feel like I'm seeing something in contrails, so I'm a little bit questioning that. Tell me the title of this again.
Yeah, too close to call.
Oh, too close to call.
Same
Okay.
idea. Yeah, that's a question I was going to ask you when I first saw this is what you feel about the propellers because I hear comments both ways on that, but you prefer to see a little bit of motion in them.
Yeah, I do prefer to see a little bit of motion. Slowing the shutter speed down just a little bit gives us that realism to it, in my opinion. But the colors are great. The story is phenomenal. I love the diagonal going through there with them meeting right in the center. Just very cool. Great capture, great shot.
Yeah.
Just at a very awesome time. But I do wish shutter speed was just slightly slower to give a little bit of motion to the props.
Yeah, you need to shoot at about a 125th.
Mhm.
Is that the right number for that to
Right in that area, yeah,
just
because
a little blur without
to
blurring?
me, to me, this title should be inopportune engine failure.
And the
That does tell a story, that's for sure.
fact that one of them's inverted, it looks like they could put their hands up and touch each other.
Yeah.
I'm thinking they're doing this, they're probably going to do a high five as they pass each other.
Yeah.
Just reach out the cockpit and rip an arm off, but So 125 is a good number for this kind of thing, Cliff.
Yeah, that'll work. Yeah.
Flip this at 180 degrees.
What do you mean? What?
It'd be the same image, right?
Yeah, I'd say flip it over again. Yeah.
That's right.
I first thought you were going to say turn it 90 degrees and see what that would be, because that might be kind of interesting too.
The sun can't be coming up from the bottom.
Am I allowed to ask a question?
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Um,
I'm just playing.
if I
That's right.
slow it down too much, because I can't pan, if you pan, then the opposite airplane becomes blurry. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, yeah, because you got to pan only one
I mean,
way.
it's hard to see, but there is some motion. But if I'd have done, anyway, I'm just asking the question because
Well, there's a lot of folks in our association that do a lot of the different aircraft in different times. I have one friend of mine that travels all over the country, and he's actually gotten to the point where he'll go in and just cut out that blade and give it a blur and put it back in there so they're equal. So, I mean, it depends on if you're okay doing that, because some people are like, no, no, that's not how it is. But for the art of it,
To the maker, what shutter speed did you use? Do you have any idea? I know it'll be in your
I have to go back and look.
file, but
But that's true if you're panning, you can't, that makes
Yeah.
it right.
Right.
I learned that lesson real fast.
yeah, you learn the hard way, right? So Ken's just saying the same thing with 160th and 125.
Gary and I were in San Francisco one time when they were having Fleet Week. The Blue Angels were practicing just over and over and over, and he was trying to keep them in focus on autofocus. So I still laugh at him for that.
Yeah, you wouldn't share with me.
Yeah, I just put mine on infinity, just about on manual, and he wasn't thinking about that. I
Well,
mean,
nowadays the cameras have an airplane mode.
Right, right.
Cameras will track them pretty nice now.
This is a tough one.
Very nice shot. Very nice shot. Great.
I think you'd have to, it probably more of an ethics or a personal question as to whether to drop in some other blades that had a little spin to them to give it that look. I think that would make it, obviously this is true based on how the parameters that you had to use to shoot it, but yeah, like Ken was saying, this one's a tough one. So I think it becomes an artistic choice at that point, Ted. Just we will do whatever you want. We won't tell anybody. How's that? It's very cool. And it's what's cool about it, because we see a lot of, the Blue Angels or the different groups in formations and coming in, and it's kind of getting to be it's kind of getting to be the same shot as the baby swaddled in the blanket that everybody's doing it, and they're just putting different things in the picture with it. And after a while, it's like, okay, nice, but we're starting to lose some of the punch. So this is a great twist on that, especially the diagonal of the smoke, Yeah, I think this is a very well handled composition. So good job there. We've only got a couple, three images left. Let's look at this one. This is called Tree and Library Growing Together. Kathy, what are your thoughts on this more commercial, industrial,
Wow, very abstract, very interesting.
abstract? Yeah.
Almost looks like the prow of a ship coming out of the water with the tree coming out of the water. But I don't know, really nice. I definitely would be in higher numbers with this if we were putting numbers on it. The creativity is off the charts. The image quality is off the charts. The technical excellence. I like the fact that you did not put a stark white mat around it because not pulling us away from what we're looking at. Love the angle that you chose to photograph from. And I'm seeing the textures in whatever that is they're on. It appears to be snow, but not really. But I like the textures there. I'm seeing a little bit of haloing around the top of the Christmas tree as it goes back.
On the left side, I see a little bit on my screen here.
Mhm. But it's very interesting. It pulls me into it and holds me for a very long time.
Yeah, lots of great triangles and diagonals that work together well. The tree shape, the shape of the front of the building, and then throwing that curve at the top of the building there just really gives it a little bit of a movement throughout. I like the building is pointing into the corner, and it's kind of tight. It gives us a little bit of tension there. And yet we have, even though these lines aren't level, they're not supposed to be, but they're all a nice movement towards the window, and yet this is level. So technically handled very well. I think it's very cool.
I think so. I would stick high numbers on that if I were numbering.
Yeah, in the beginning of the program we talked about people were asking about what would you score it, and we answered the question a couple times, but we weren't right for the next competition, and they were kind of upset because you said it was going to get a 90. I'm like, no, 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 no. We didn't say it was going to get a 90. We said this if we were scoring it. So we stopped doing that, but I don't mind we talk about it. But this is called Troubled Times. So this is a very awesome viewpoint of this mine fall here with the red mountains in the background, nice color harmony throughout the whole scene. Just really comfortable, even just the seeing a little bit of the slope of the hill gives us a direction to look at the mine. It's on a point. If you do the rule of thirds, that kind of repetition of the same color tones in the mountains that pulls us from, peak to peak down to the mine building here. I even like the brown mat, the key lines done very subtly. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with all that. I like the layers looking through the entire image, the entire scene, particularly like what you mentioned about the building itself of the mine echoing the colors up above. I think the composition is really, really nice. We see enough of the sky to give us the feel of that softness we see throughout the image. We don't see a lot of specularity, but we shouldn't with that overcast sky.
Right.
So done so very evenly, lit evenly and nicely, which works in this particular scene.
Yeah, there's plenty of contrast, tonal range for this scene. It doesn't have to be a brightly lit sky. The sky is absolutely gorgeous with that storm rolling through. The only little thing I might add to it is this area here. You can see it's kind of, and I don't know if maybe there's a little bit of clouds floating in it, but I might tone this area down, this rock formation, just to take those down a little bit darker. We've got some deeper tones in the yellows and the golds, greens and dark greens through the rest of the scene. The tones of the red mountains are deeper. And then this area just seems a little bit softer. I would maybe just work on dropping that brightness of that area right there. And I think you'd have, because it's just asking for a little bit of attention. And really the story is between the mine shaft and the red peaks and down. That's the triangle, at least I see. But hey, like we said, that's about all we can find that could be done a little differently on it. So good job.
It's nice. Normally, I would not have liked the dead trees right in the front,
Right.
but pointing straight up toward the mine building. So it works for you in this instance.
Adding some, hey, look over here kind of a thing. And
Exactly.
again, one other minor thing, these are the things that we talk about that you might consider. Everything's going so well. This little thing in the clouds, while it's a natural thing, I think I'd maybe get rid of that because it's just starting to ask for a little bit of attention, and it's for to what avail? Why is it pulling me up there? The clouds don't need the attention. It's the mine shaft and the red peaks that do it. So again, minor things, but that's the little stuff I will do. I mean, everything else is great, but just that one little thing.
Good job.
I think I got one more here. Yeah, one more. Watchful Eyes. Oh man, another awesome story of a family portrait. Good point of view. Get two nice profiles. Their heads are kind of going the same direction, which I know can be tough when you have animals and they look all around the slightest noises. The vignette of the greens around it are nice. Obviously tough. You got all this green in front of this animal, but again, I don't mind it because it's coming up all around them and it just shows their environment. The faces are clear. I like that this one's sharper than this one. I don't think that's necessary to have them both sharp. I might go in and just like we've got some catch lights in the eyes, but I might go in and I would just lighten the brown of the color of the eye just ever so slight so that it makes it grabs a little more attention. Normally in a competition, we don't refer from image to image, but in the same sense, this one seems flat. I think the contrast could be a little bit stronger. Kathy, anything you want to add to that?
Oh, I think it's probably
Right.
the time of day and we don't have a lot of light direction, although we do have catch lights, but it's coming from overhead.
So just the
Um,
contrast, you can see how it gives it a little more punch there.
right, that's true. I love the fact that they have a place to look into. I like the composition of this image really well. The matting is handled well and that it's gone the greens, but it's dark. It's not
Right,
bright, pulling us
right.
away. We have a vignette that looks very, very natural. So many things done really nicely in this image.
But I think again, mostly probably to me the main thing is just the contrast level. And this is just a levels layer, and I pulled the white slider in to give us a little more brightness. And I think all of a sudden you got just that much more punch, adds a little bit of life to the scene maker. So that's just my take. And with that, that's the last image, guys. We've done very nicely. Anybody have any other questions or comments about what we've seen? Yeah, Gary says great job, and a really good looking guest. Couldn't agree more. Good job there. We do our best to get the best looking judges into the show here, Gary. So you and the missus have done us proud.
Hey, guys, seriously, I'm very impressed with your work. So much beautiful work. You have some awesome photographers there. You know, you have beautiful scenery and that's good,
It
but
helps.
it does help. But I read something today about a photographer. We're observers, but it's not just what we see, it's how we see it.
Yeah, good point.
That's the difference right there. And other people can go to your beautiful area and not get what you're getting.
We're happy to have you guys. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. It's been a good crowd. We're going to obviously do it again next month, and I really think Rick may be back at some point or another. We have, oh gosh, he just lined up a judge, and I can't think of who it is for next month. But we have Burt Banks coming in a couple of months. Who's Burt and I have known each other. He and I have known each other longer than I've known any other human being except my folks. Burt's mom and dad were both in the industry, so we've been around this association for a long time. So it'll be a joy to have him in the house too. So please stay tuned and join us for that coming up. So, anyways, anybody else have any more questions we can handle while we're going on? I'll render this file like I do and get it up online for you in a couple of days so you can watch it. I'll send an email out so you can go and watch it and then think of entering some images for us. And do me a favor. Maybe don't wait till the last day, maybe a couple of days earlier. That's perfect. I'm glad to have it. I'm glad to have it, but give me a little bit of a break and give me a couple more days. Anyways, very cool, everybody. Kathy, thank you so very much for giving us your expertise. Wonderful comments. Absolutely a delight to have you in the show. I'm glad your computer glitch problem there earlier didn't last the whole show because that would have been a bummer.
My technical support fixed it for me.
Well, you got the best crew there for that, so that's good to know. All right.
Thank you so much for having me. I have enjoyed looking at these gorgeous images and getting
Makes,
these voices that I know.
that makes it fun, doesn't it? Gang, thank you so much. People are leaving. So again, I thank you so much. And make sure that if you have any questions or comments about any of your images, especially questions, feel free to send them to us. The guys at theimagecritiqueshow.com is the email. And Rick and I are happy to give you some comments on it, even send them off to Kathy if she's interested in just making some other comments. And of course, we offer critique services. You can hire us to look at 5 or 6 or 10 images, a whole portfolio if you want, to us to do that for you. We're happy to do that. So we're here for you guys. That's why we're doing this. Thank you for making it happen. This has been a great audience, a good number of people, and I'm excited. Just too bad Rick couldn't enjoy it. He says hi though. Thanks
Good night.
everybody. Good night.
Thank you for watching the Image Critique Show with Jeff Johnson and Rick Avalos. Learn more by checking them out at theimagecritiqueshow.com.